Can it be dangerous? Any of the stuff that you're doing? I mean, obviously, you probably wouldn't do it too often if it was extremely dangerous.
Yeah, I found myself in certain situations over the years that were less than pleasant. There are entities out there who are not so friendly, and I have suffered attacks, spiritual attacks, while out of my body on multiple occasions. But these are very rare. The possibility does exist of having an experience like this, and so it's definitely something to be aware of. But over 22 years of regularly practicing this and exploring other dimensions, these negative experiences are the vast minority. So all of the positive, enlightening, revelatory, just beyond words, incredible experiences, those are the majority. And they more than make up for the handful of negative experiences that I've had.
Can you elaborate, or if you're comfortable with elaborating on what one of those spiritual attack experiences would be like?
Sure. I'll tell you about the first one. It was in the early days of my practice, and I was out of my body. I was in a lower astral dimension, and typically you'll encounter these negative entities in the lower dimensions. And it basically came at me from behind and grabbed my shoulder, and I felt what seemed like claws dig into my shoulder. And now I'm out of my body. It's not my physical body that is being affected. It's my astral body or energy body, whatever you want to call it. It is
Hmm.
it is a body. It's more of a like a spiritual level body. But we have the physical body which operates in the physical dimension, and then we have these other spiritual bodies that correspond to spiritual or non-physical levels of reality. So you're not just out there as just like a point of consciousness. Like you do experience a body of some kind. And so this entity grabbed my shoulder from behind, and I immediately felt this deep pain just sinking into my shoulder. And I immediately knew that I was being grabbed by some type of malevolent entity, and it really hurt. And I immediately snapped back into my body.
Let's say that you had to put some sort of a physical description to what you are seeing in these dimensional levels. What would it be? The lower dimensions versus the higher.
Okay, sure. The lower dimensions tend to look a lot like the physical world. And essentially, how it works is the lower the dimension is, the closer in frequency it is to the physical dimension. So you can consider the lowest dimension to be the non physical dimension that's just slightly higher than the physical dimension. And these lower dimensions tend to look a lot like the physical world. And typically, they're also dark. You'll usually project and it'll seem like it's nighttime, and that's typically the nature of these lower level dimensions. And then so like I said, the lower levels are almost exact duplicates of the physical world. But as you get higher and higher, things start to really diverge from the physical world and what we're used to in this level of reality, and things just become more unique and abstract. And it seems like the lower levels, they don't seem negative in and of themselves, but they're more neutral, right? They lack any kind of, I don't know, emotional or energetic resonance, in the sense that, well, in the higher dimensions, they tend to permeate with a particular quality of energy, and usually this is like a blissful energy. And so when you're immersed in these dimensions, you're also immersed in this energy that radiates throughout these dimensions, which, like I said, is like loving bliss. And as you get higher, this increases more and more. And sometimes you'll be in such a high dimension, and the corresponding energy of this dimension is so intense. It's like the greatest feeling of bliss that you could ever imagine. There's nothing in the physical world that even comes close to it. And in terms of the environments, they can get really hard to explain once you start really getting up there. But how do I even begin to explain it? Well, consider our physical perceptions. Like we see something with our eyes, and we hear something with our ears, and so on. Well, perceptions in these higher dimensions are essentially multi-dimensional perceptions, or multi-perceptual, in the sense that you don't just hear something, but the sound manifests in all these other ways, which can be really almost impossible to explain. And the same is with emotions that you feel. You don't just feel, but the experience manifests in these abstract ways, and that goes with all the perceptions. And in some of these higher dimensions, it seems like there's music playing throughout the entire dimension, and it's the most beautiful music that you could ever imagine. Like, nothing in this physical world compares to that, and it would be impossible to replicate it. And yeah, so like this music, you hear it, but you feel it, and it manifests in these different visual, I don't know, shapes and geometric patterns, and it gets really trippy.
While you were talking about the lower levels, lower realms of astral projecting, what you were saying gave me goosebumps. It made my heart pound, my jaw dropped, because I've had reoccurring settings of dreams probably for the past 2 or 3 years now. I haven't talked to anybody about it besides my girlfriend. Like, I haven't talked to Mike or Dave about this because I didn't think anything of it until what you just said. And I don't know if that's astral projection or not. I can't say for sure, which is why I'm going to explain it and see what you think. I have this reoccurring, it's not even a reoccurring dream, it's just a reoccurring setting of the town that I did most of my growing up in. And in those dreams, it's always nighttime, and all of the lights outside of all of the buildings, they're illuminated, but very dimly. I wouldn't even explain it as I would a different dream. It doesn't feel incredibly different. That, if anything, just more vivid. Do you think that's possible astral projection without knowing? Is that a thing? Like, without trying to?
Sure, yeah, definitely. I mean, the reality is that everyone projects every time we go to sleep. It's actually a natural process that happens when the body falls asleep. But usually our minds also lose consciousness, so we're unaware of these projections. Some dreams are actually recollections of astral projections. The typical dream is considered to be a fabrication of the subconscious mind, right? But, throughout the years, experimenting with different states of consciousness between astral projection, lucid dreaming, and dreaming, I've come to understand the connection between these states, and they kind of almost exist like in a spectrum of consciousness. And so you can actually shift between these different states and these different levels of non-physical reality. And so, yeah, what you're saying, it could be, memories of astral projections. Maybe you're not fully conscious in the experience, but the thing is, how it works is our consciousness operates on multiple levels of reality simultaneously, but we only experience one particular level at a time. Like, we're focused in on one level, but there are things happening in the background in other levels. And you start to learn that once you, in my case, once I began to experience these multiple levels, not just shifting between one and the other, but actually experiencing them simultaneously. In my opinion, and the way I understand things, when you project from the body and you have these experiences, it's the experiences themselves that cause the changes in your physicality. And so our consciousness is so much greater than we understand and experience. Right now, it seems like we're these individuals living this life in this physical world with this physical body. The reality is, who we are is so much greater than that, and you can experience this firsthand. And I have. And there is something called the higher self, and the higher self is essentially who we are as conscious spiritual entities at the highest level of our being, and who we are here as these particular individuals with these names that our parents gave us, living this current life here on earth. Well, this is just a small portion, just a small aspect of this greater entity that we actually are. And so you can experience this higher level of your own consciousness. And we are actually comprised of multiple individuals having different lives, different locations throughout different periods of times. We're all connected through the higher self. So the higher self is this enormous consciousness that is able to kind of split itself off and send probes, you can call them, to have different lives, to gain different experiences with the purpose of accumulating knowledge and learning and spiritual development in a way that it can basically maximize, our time here. So we're not just this one person, gaining whatever lessons we gain from this one life, but at this higher level, we're actually incarnating simultaneously into all these different places and throughout time. And at the level of the higher self, you experience this fact and you experience yourself as no longer just your limited identity in this one particular body, but you experience yourself also as all of these other individuals, and you're all connected at this higher level. You're all one consciousness.
Taking it back to the entities that someone may encounter, do you think that there's a chance that these ultra terrestrials might actually be the demonic and heavenly angelic type entities that are talked about in religious texts tapping into our dream states that could cause possessions and or enlightenments on the other side?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Yeah, these entities, I'm sure, have been around, since the beginning of time, right? The entities that I've encountered, well, a lot of them are not human, and they're not physical beings either. And I've encountered entities that look like aliens. I've encountered angels, and everything in between. And yeah, it definitely makes sense that there's some correspondence between, yeah, like more ancient depictions of particular spiritual entities